It's time for another Dice Tower review with Zee Garcia.
Hey everybody, today I'm taking a look at a card game called Bali here. And in this one, it's basically a game in which you are making offerings to the gods of different kinds of goods, things like, fruits and peanuts, things like that, while also keeping some in front of you because depending on how many have been offered, those are going to have worth assigned to them. It's kind of a quirky card game with some things that take a little getting used to, but it's basically and ultimately a set collection game and a stock manipulation game, okay, with this theme wrapped around it. So let's take a look at how the game works. We'll come on back after that, and I'll tell you if all these strange little quirks come together to make a good game. The player with the most victory points at the end of the game is going to be the winner, and those victory points come from three different things. You are going to get some victory points throughout the game. You're going to be scoring those at the end of the game. You are also going to get 4 victory points for every shrine you've played in front of you, as denoted right there in the center of the card. And you are going to get victory points for the cards, for the goods here that you have kept in front of you until the end of the game, each one of those being worth between 3 and no points, based on how many of them have been offered on the altar here, all right? And so this is the game setup. I will be the star player on this side, hence I only have 2 stone. Each player after that would get 1 more than the previous player. And I have 3 cards in my hand. So each player already starts with a stonemason in play, and we are off. Each round has 4 different actions you can take. I'm going to skip the very first one for now, which is optional, and I'll jump right into step 2. Step 2 is playing a card, sometimes more than one, but very rarely. So, on my turn, I only have 3 cards in my hand. I'll be able to play a card. It simply goes in front of me. They are all free, except for 2 kinds of cards. If I play a shrine card, that's going to cost me 7 stone. It says it right there on the card. And the other way I spend some stones to play cards is if I play more than 1 farmer of the same kind. These 3 are all different, of course. But if I had, say, 2 peanut farmers, then I could play more than 1. I could play up to 3. And I would pay 1 stone for each one past the first one. So if I just play one, as I will do now, that's free. If I had 2 of them identical and I played both, I'd have to pay a stone for that, okay? And so I'll do this. That's step 2, as I said. Play a card. Step 3 is take cards to replenish my hand size back up. And I'm going to take any card from the bottom of all of these stacks. So I'm going to take this stonemason right here. Taking a card from the display and replenishing your hand does 2 things. Obviously, it adds this card to my hand, but also the last card revealed is going to trigger a scoring, and that is step 4, scoring. In this case, I have revealed one of the peanut farmers, and every player at the table is going to get, if they have any peanut farmers, they're going to get 1 of these cards. And they'll just put that face down somewhere in their own pool, all right? The opponent does not have any, so they don't get 1. There is also the possibility to get a second one if you have the most farmers of that kind and at least 2. In this case, I don't have at least 2, so I just get the 1 card, and that's the turn. It's back to my opponent, who is going to go through those same steps again, okay? The step 1, which I skipped, is an optional step, and it allows you to buy one of these straight up at the beginning of the round for stone. The cost is 5 stones, but you get a discount of 1 per farmer of that type that you have. And so my opponent could not do that. If they had 5 stone, they could. And to me, if I want to buy one next time, I would have to pay, assuming I want one of the peanut cards, 4 stones, because I already have 1 farmer in that kind. So they'll go, they're going to play a card, and they are going to play, let's say, what are they going to play? They're going to play this one here, and they are going to pick up this card here because they want to show how that works, all right? And this is going to go back and forth. The way you score different things, you already understand how the farmers work. The stonemasons, whenever a stonemason is the card that is revealed here, then all the stonemasons are going to produce stone. You get 1 stone per stonemason If you have the most and at least 2, you get 1 bonus stone. And then these priests that I just pulled, when a priest is the card that is revealed, so for example, next time someone takes this card up into their hand, and that's the last card revealed, then the priests give you victory points. And again, just like stonemasons, you get 1 per card, and a bonus if you have the most and at least 2. That's every kind of card except for these shrines. And this is going to continue. Whenever you empty one of these, you replenish 4 new cards from the deck. And if that was the last card that you picked up into your hand, then whichever card ends up on the bottom of this stack, in this case, that's stonemason, that's the one that triggers whatever the players score for step 4. The only other kind of card I have not talked about is the shrine cards here, which are, there's quite a bit about these cards that I need to explain, because a lot of the scoring revolves around these cards. Everything else at this point makes sense. You use farmers to get cards when they're triggered, to buy cards more cheaply. You have the priests for victory points. You have the stonemasons for stone. These kinds of cards here, to play one, it's going to cost you 7 stone. Let's say it is my opponent who plays one. They pay their 7 stone. I am going to grab the cards I have here in my stack of gathered goods, and I am going to place one of them on the altar there. I will do that when they trigger, okay? Everyone after them will do that. Now, my opponent will, the one who triggered that, let's assume they've got some goods that they've set aside, like so themselves. They'll look through it, and they'll add one, but they'll add one face down, and then another one that comes from outside the game. And so they might do that face up on there as well. So they've affected the possible values of these cards by 2. One of them the rest of the players saw. The other one we did not see. And that's it. That's how that works, okay? And they are going to score 4 victory points for that card. This is all going to continue until the deck of cards is gone. When all the cards have been played out, a line cannot be replenished, and so on. Game is immediately over, and then we score. At that point, players are typically going to have a few of these points in front of them, and they are going to have 2 or 3 of the shrines, possibly. So they'll have a few of these in front of them. And then we need to take all of these cards. So let's just say that this is what happened so far. They are going to take all of the cards that are in the shrine, and we are going to figure out how valuable they are. So we'll go through here and figure out which one is the one that has been offered the most. In this case, these are the ones that have been offered the most. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. There are 3 here, and 1 of these. Just for the sake of the example, I'm going to throw another one of these rice cards in here. Whichever one has been offered the most, each one of those cards is worth 3 victory points. Second most, each one of those cards is worth 2 victory points. 1 victory point, worthless at the end of the game. And what you're scoring for yourself are, of course, the ones you kept. You add the values of these, in this case, worthless, worthless, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Obviously, not a real game score, but that's how you do it. And that's basically it. So you're building up your tableau, grabbing cards, trying to be smart, not just with what you put in your hand, but with what you reveal, so you can score a bunch of things here, get that stone production going, sneak some victory points in on the side, get the right farmer so that you are scoring a lot of these, getting that extra bonus card whenever possible, affecting the market here, basically, the stock, right? So that whatever you are going for will be quite valuable at the end of the game, and try to get the most victory points. That's how you play the game. All right, so there it is. Let's talk about it using my system here. We're going to start with thematic ties, and as far as the theme goes, this game doesn't really get any points. I find it to be window dressing, largely, you know. In fact, this printing of it, which is a very nicely done reprint of the game, is rethemed from the company that had it last with a different theme. They got all new illustrations, new setting in the world, and it's the exact same game. It works, theme's fine, but it's there because it makes for nice drawings, right? Speaking of that, the aesthetics, I think the drawings are nice. I think it's okay. I think the illustrations are well done. I think the components are pleasant. They are functional and well done. But again, It doesn't blow me away because of the components or the illustrations. Functional. Even you could even say, yeah, these are good. They are well done. It's not a wow factor to the game. Let's talk about replayability here and scalability, which is very important in this case. The replayability, I think, is somewhere in the middle of the road. I think I still have more to explore in it, and I am going to continue to do so. But it's not the kind of game you're going to pull out every weekend and play because there's so many tactics and strategy. There's something maybe I haven't discovered. No, there's a couple of different avenues you may go as you are playing. You could go priest heavy, get a bunch of points that way. You could generate a bunch of stones and not worry too much about the market, but use the stone to buy cards, whatever they're worth. Just buy more, kind of, keep an eye on the market, but don't worry about affecting it. And then there is that strategy about affecting the market with the shrines. Being the one to trigger the shrines, that gets you 4 points, and you get to be the one that manipulates the market to hopefully suit what you've been doing. So that's about it. Those are sort of the things you can do. You might do 2 of those 3, a little bit of each, but that's basically what's going on. So replayability is there. You're not going to play once and feel done. And in fact, the game kind of has a learning curve because it does have a quirky sense of cadence maybe with that whole take a card, but then the one revealed is the one that triggers scoring. There's sort of some funky play in it, but replayability is okay. Scalability, I don't think is particularly good in this game. In fact, I don't like the game at all at 4 players. I think that, the deck, for one thing, does not change, the size of the deck. And while it's true that you are getting things on other people's turns, because they'll trigger that scoring for you as well, you do feel like you are doing less. And technically, you are doing less, because the deck is the same for 2, 3, and 4 players. I like the game a lot at 2. It's fine at 3 as well. 4, I don't like. With 2, I feel like I'm doing so much more, and I get to watch my opponent more closely. I get to see kind of what they're going for. I really like that. And the deck, going through it does not feel too long. It doesn't outstay its welcome, but it gives me enough to do. So 2 players, thumbs up on this one. Game length is fine. Again, it's about the same length with 4 people, but you'll feel like you do less. That length, that amount of actual time, though, is good. So I like how long the game is. The ease of play, which is fiddliness, if there's any weird design choices, anything like that, I don't find the game to be fiddly necessarily. As far as weird design choices, there's a couple. The market, the altar, it's kind of a strange concept. Everything else makes sense, and then that concept feels strange in regards to the rest of the game. It feels like sort of 2 different concepts kind of pushed together, and yeah, they're holding, but it's a bizarre relationship that those 2 things have. Manipulating the market is interesting and kind of weird, and it has a pseudo memory element. If you don't, if you don't look through the cards, which you're not supposed to, you cover them up. So there's that. I think that's kind of a weird not fiddly, but a weird design choice included in the game. I can't quite put my finger on it, okay? But the market just doesn't feel 100% there. Like something's off. Should all the cards be face up? Should all the cards be face down? Should we just lay them out and be able to see what the market is, except for the hidden ones? Would that make the game too slow? Too much analysis paralysis? What is it? I can't quite put my finger on it. Also, there's ties a lot, which is fine, but it's almost like there's not enough variability in the market to clearly have a first, a second, a third, and a fourth place. There's ties often, especially with more players, it seems. That's what I've noticed anyway. So those are kind of the weird things, okay? And then lastly, tactics and strategy, and of course, luck. There's fun tactics in here. Strategy, keeping an eye on what's happening and making sure you're buying those cards. And it is important to use your stone to buy more goods, more than the game gives you. You got to balance the stone between triggering the shrines and just getting more goods. So there's that. There are tactics. I don't know if there's too many long-term strategies, but lots of tactics reacting to what's happening, playing a card, to then immediately pick up a card, and the one underneath triggers that thing, especially early in the game. So yeah, there's that. but it's definitely a strange beast, this game. It's a little quirky. All right, having said all that, and it all sounds like I'm basically hitting the very middle of the scale, right? It's like, this is somewhere in the middle, this is somewhere in the middle, this is somewhere in the middle. I still enjoy the game. I find it appealing. But be aware, with everyone I've played with, everybody else has had sort of this meh feeling about the game, right? Where they also feel like they can't quite put their finger on it. Here's the difference between everyone I've played with and me. I've played it multiple times, and I've played the game with different groups each time. I think the first impression of this game is going to be a little off-putting. I don't know if that's because it's weird. If, it's not, it takes traditional concepts and kind of messes with them enough where you feel, I don't know, just sort of off balance by the game, made to feel that way. But it's growing on me, and I do enjoy it. It's kind of that movie you like that isn't quite perfect. You can see the rough edges, but it charms you anyway. You kind of want to keep coming back to it and putting it on the TV and letting it do its thing. It has that quality for me. I enjoy the game. Again, at 2 players. And this is pretty much from now on going to be a 2-player game for me. So, having said all that, I like it, and I think you should give it a shot. I enjoy what it does. There's a couple of variants in there as well that you can throw in if you want to, but again, I don't feel like they really add too much to the concept. Tried both. Neither one, for me, really made me feel like, oh, this fixes that kind of feeling of not quite there, So, ultimately, this one just barely scrapes underneath getting a seal for me, okay? But I do enjoy it, and I do recommend it because it's clever and it's charming. It has some charm in it. And I think the more you play, the more you are going to be charmed by the game. So I like it. Bali, I do recommend you give it a shot. It's a neat one. It's from the designer of Carcassonne, and you can kind of see some of that mind at work in here, the clever sort of things that the designer has come up with and put into the game. So there you go. Check it out. Once again, that is Bali.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.